Welcome back to my channel. I am coming up on almost a full year on YouTube, and as I was looking back through the videos I've done so far, I realized I never even did a video on exactly how we got out of almost $55,000 of debt. So if you're interested in hearing that story and all of the details that go along with it, then stick around. Hey guys, my name is Kristin. I'm a blogger at senseandpurpose.com, and this channel actually started with me sharing our debt-free journey, and I don't know how in the world I didn't realize until almost a year in that I never shared the exact steps we took to get out of all of our debt. I have no idea. I'm losing my mind. I really don't know how I missed that. Now, if you're new to my channel, I hope you'll subscribe. I make videos all about frugal living, saving money, getting out of debt. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, I hope you'll stick around and join my family here on YouTube. So one of the first videos I did here on my channel was sharing my debt story with you. Sharing the story of how we paid off $35,000 of debt in 7 months, and then we actually closed a side business that we had that had some debt of its own. So we went back into paying off debt mode and paid off another $20,000. So of course, the main way that we got out of debt was by cutting expenses, living on a budget, slashing our food budget, making sacrifices, saying no, all of the things that I talk about on this channel regularly. I just did a video sharing 50 frugal living tips. You can check that out up here. And that video was showcasing all of the ways that we save money on a day-to-day basis. So all of those things went into helping us live on less and live below our means, which freed up a lot of extra money to put towards our debt snowball each month. I do believe timing is a huge factor in a debt-free journey. I believe timing is a huge factor in being gazelle intense. If you follow Dave Ramsey, then you probably know what that statement means. If you don't follow Dave Ramsey, it's just a way of saying that you're going hardcore, like balls to the wall, doing every single thing possible to get out of debt as fast as you can. Now, the initial amount of debt that we were working to pay off was a total of $35,000, and this was our personal consumer debt. So this did not include our mortgage, and it did not include the business debt that I mentioned earlier. What this did include was 2 car loans, a loan for the Invisalign that I did for my teeth, and a whole bunch of credit card debt. And I talk about that in my debt story video that is linked up in the cards, and it'll be linked down below as well, so you can check that out. And you might even want to go watch that one first so you kind of understand how we found ourselves in all this debt in the first place. Now, the first thing we did, as I mentioned earlier, was we set a really strict budget. So when I was trying to budget many times over the years and failing, it's because it was so overwhelming. And I sat there and I would look at these budgets, and our income would be far outweighed by our expenses. And that just would make my heart sink. And I'm sure some of you guys are probably in the same boat or have had the same experience, and it really makes it feel like it's completely impossible to ever live on a budget. So we set a really strict budget. You know, if you watch our budgeting videos now, I'll link our budgeting playlist up there, but if you watch our budgeting videos now, you'll see a whole bunch of cash envelopes that we put money aside each month, and we pay for Spotify, and you know, we have cable again and some of those things. But remember, we're debt free now. We didn't do that stuff while we were in debt. We set a very strict budget. I used to call it my bare bones budget, which was pretty much only the essentials. Now, we have a variable income, which means we had to estimate our pay each month because we are never exactly sure what the paycheck was going to be when it came in. And what that allowed me to do was estimate really low and budget on the lowest possible amount that I know would be coming in. So that was our bare bones budget. So whatever was left at the end, that would always go towards debt. The next thing we did, and I talk about this in videos prior, but we set really aggressive goals to the point that my husband thought I had lost my mind. He's not a big goal setter. That's that's more my thing. And the night we came home from our very first Financial Peace University class, I couldn't fall asleep. My mind was going crazy, and I set some really aggressive goals to pay off each loan and when I thought we would be debt-free. And I remember waking him up, probably accidentally kicking him so he would wake up and I could tell him all about the goals I set, because I was so pumped on these goals. Now, they sounded outrageous, and he just kind of rolled his eyes at me and was like, okay, whatever. He's used to me dreaming and talking like a crazy person, so it didn't really faze him. But I was like hell bent on hitting these goals, and they seemed so out of reach, but I truly, truly believe that is what helped keep me motivated, and in turn keeping him motivated. And I marked them on my whiteboard, and I put sticky notes, and I put them in my planner, and I put them on my phone, and everywhere I looked, these goals were in my face, so you can't forget about them. I think that's really powerful when you're setting goals and you're really working hard to reach those goals, is having them in your face all the time, whatever that means for you. You set them as your screensaver on your phone or your computer. Like I said, put them in your planner. Write them on a piece of paper and hang them on the fridge. Whatever it takes to keep those goals forefront in your mind made a huge difference in our journey. The next thing we did was we stopped using credit cards. This was freaking tough. Like, this was such a struggle. We relied so hard on those credit cards, and that is because of what I said earlier. Our expenses outweighed our income. So what did we do? We would bridge the gap every single month with credit cards. That's how we got by. That's how we lived. Because when we couldn't pay for things, we'd put them on a credit card. Then when our paycheck would come in 2 weeks, we'd pay off that credit card, or as much as we could at least. And that would pretty much drain our account down to zero. So then what we would do is we'd cover the rest of our expenses on our credit card. And this was a vicious cycle. And for a long time, you know, we stuck with it and we paid that card off. But eventually, it started creeping up and creeping up. And again, I share more about how that happened in our debt story, but I'm sure you can relate. I'm sure you've probably been in a similar situation, and you know, you feel like you have it under control, and you do until you don't. And then it just snowballs and spirals out of control, and you're left with this mountain of credit card debt. So we knew if we were ever going to make any progress, we had to stop using credit cards. We stopped using every single card we had except for one. The only one we kept had a couple of our auto pay bills on, and it still does to this day, and we also used it for gas. So we started using the cash envelope system. I have a video all about the cash envelope system up here. You can check that out. And we started using this cash system, and it sucked. It was really, really inconvenient at first. It was not easy. It took some work, it took some planning, and it took some discipline, because when the money in that envelope was gone, that's it. It was gone. Now, you know, you could borrow from another envelope if you had extra, and we did things like that sometimes, but for the most part, that was it until our next paycheck came. And it was hard, but I firmly believe that stopping the use of credit cards on a day-to-day basis had a huge impact. And I also know, I really know that if we did not change that one important habit, then we would have not gotten out of debt. No way. We'd probably still be paying off debt, because the credit cards and the interest just sucks you in, and it's so hard to get ahead. The next thing we did, and this is really controversial, so I'm sure I'll probably get some comments that are against this, and I understand that, but let me just explain to you. This is a very personal journey. Personal finance is personal, and we did what we felt was right for us. So we cashed in our whole life insurance policies. When we got married, we got a whole life policy on my husband, because that's what we thought you should do. Now, if you've ever taken Financial Peace University or followed Dave Ramsey, you know how much he hates whole life policies. It's something that I've always been taught was a good financial tool. And then here comes Dave Ramsey trashing them and telling you what an awful financial product they are. And I left that class really scratching my head. I said to my husband that this is something I really thought we should look into. So we talked it over with a couple people that we felt would give us some really good knowledge. We did some of our own research, and we discussed it at length between the two of us many times. And we decided that this made sense for us. This is really, really important if you're going to close your whole life policies. Before we did this, we went out and renewed our term policies. So we had both whole life policies and term life policies. Please don't close any policies until you are insured, because I might not believe in whole life policy as a good financial product, but I believe in insuring yourself, especially if you have a family. So we went out and we redid our term life policies to extend our term and lower our rate. And then we went and we closed our whole life policies. And between mine and my husband's policy, we ended up getting over $12,000 back that we were able to put right on our debt. The next thing we did is we hustled. Now I know this kind of sounds a little generic. You hear so much about ways you can make money on the side, but seriously, this helped. When your expenses outweigh your income, as ours did, you have two options. You can reduce your expenses and you can increase your income. And I already mentioned how we worked day in and day out to try and decrease our expenses. So the other thing we really worked to do was to increase our income. My husband did as much overtime as he could tolerate, and my income from my job was pretty fixed, so I hustled. I actually ended up starting my business, which is my blog and this YouTube channel, and I started going through my house and selling everything we could sell on like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. And we did some other side hustles with different apps. I have a blog post I wrote on that. I'll link that down below. You can check that out. And what I liked about that is it was things that we could kind of fit into the margins of our day. And this was mostly me. My husband mostly just did overtime at his job, since that yielded a ton more money for him than the side hustles. But I liked that I could fit this in while I was blogging, while I was taking care of my kids, and while I was working my part-time job. So I did everything I could to earn some extra money on the side, and that really helped. It made a big difference bringing in that extra money and being able to put it towards our debt each month. Now, I want to mention the next couple things were huge blessings. They were kind of random things that were already set in motion before we even started this debt-free journey. And I heard a quote a long time ago, and that is, when you are faithful with the little things, you will be made ruler over much. I believe with these next couple steps, since they were set in motion, and this was money that we were waiting on for years, that was being held up, it wasn't coming through, and all of a sudden we started paying off debt, and boom, here it comes. I mean, thousands and thousands of dollars. I truly believe that God was not letting us get this money because he knows we would end up blowing it and spending it and probably just using it to pay off a credit card that we would turn around and rack right back up. God allowed these payments to finally come through once he saw that we were being faithful with what we were already given, that we were being good stewards of everything that he's given to us. I know if you're not religious or you don't believe in God, you're probably not going to agree with me there, and that's totally cool, but that's what I believe. I just thought that was important to share that here. So the next thing we did is we signed up for VA benefits. The VA is the Veterans Administration, and my husband was in the Marines, and he has some medical things going on as a result of the training he did. And this was something that he applied for years ago, and it was denied, then it was in appeal, and we hadn't heard anything for probably almost 2 years. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of this debt-free journey, he gets an email saying his payment was sent. So when you file for VA benefits, at least this is how it was back then when he filed, it takes a long time to get approved. And what happens is you're actually paid back pay from the time that you filed to the time you're approved. So he ended up getting a check of thousands of dollars lump sum from the VA when these benefits finally came through, and you better believe every penny of that went right to our debt. The next thing we did was we put our entire tax return towards our debt. Now, I know not everybody gets a tax return, so this may or may not help you. And I have a video I'll link up here all about tax tips that you might find interesting. But we got a couple $1,000 return that year, and we put the entire thing. So usually we would use our tax return to pay off our credit cards, but we put the entire thing to our debt snowball. So now that we're more financially secure, we've actually adjusted our withholdings to try and make sure we don't get a tax return next year. But if you currently are receiving a tax return, I think the best option for it is to put it all towards your debt. And the last big chunk that we got that went towards our debt was also something I consider a huge blessing. And this was that my husband's raise, my husband is in a union at work, and his raise was tied up in contract negotiations for over 2 years. And that's another lump sum that came through out of the blue. We weren't expecting, and he got a couple $1,000s in back pay as well that we were able to put all on our debt. All of those things together is what helped us pay off the $35,000 of debt. And then once we closed the business and had an additional just about $20,000 of credit card debt, we didn't have any more huge lump sums falling from the sky to help us pay off our debt. But by this point, we knew what we were doing. We had done it once and we could do it again. So we just kept going, eyes on the prize, as hard as we could go, and really worked using all of the things that we have learned, all of the things I share on this channel, and we were able to pay off that additional $20,000 in just about 9 months. So listen, I know that sometimes watching videos like this can be discouraging and can feel like, oh great, it was so easy for them, but it's so hard for me. And trust me, it wasn't easy. We had so many blessings along the way, and I am really grateful for them, because we probably still wouldn't be finished paying off our debt if some of those things we were waiting on haven't come through. And I know that you don't necessarily have those same opportunities or those same options. I don't want you to give up. Keep watching videos, keep reading blog posts, keep connecting with people on Instagram. Find people in your circle that are there to support you and cheer you on, and reach out when you're having a hard time, reach out when you're struggling, because I know it feels daunting, but you just have to take it one step at a time, and I promise you, blessings will come your way as well. I firmly believe that. And I'm here, guys, if you have any questions, if you're struggling, like I said, reach out, leave me a comment what you're struggling with, and I'll help you in any way I can. I hope you liked this video. I hope it was encouraging and motivating in some way. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I hope you have a great day.